What's up, everybody? Welcome to another virtual broadcast. I am Rodiggers, U1079 Afternoons, the day party 3 to 7.
And I am DJ Hazmat with 93.1. You catch me on the weekends partying. And welcome to your community, your police officers, which will be a candid conversation about law enforcement in Cleveland and how you can make a difference.
Definitely. So before we get started and to give you an idea of what you can expect in today's broadcast, I just want to introduce you to our guest today, and that is Public Safety Director Carrie D. Howard. We have Police Chief Calvin Williams and Detective Felton Collier. And keep in mind, before we talk about what's going on, if you have any questions that you would like to leave for any of our guests, please feel free to comment throughout the entire broadcast. We will make sure that they are answered live on the show, so feel free to comment.
Right, because we're having a candid conversation, like I said before, about people and the police, and we're going to cover topics like defunding the police and what that would look like to the police and our community if that were to happen.
Right.
Why police are essential, the changes that are taking place to make police better and make the culture better. And we'll also be talking about policing in 2020. What does that look like? Accountability, the blue wall diversity, and why it's so important to have diversity in the police force.
Definitely. So we're going to jump right into it. And I'm going to start off with asking, what is the difference between police and defunding the police?
So defunding the police is not taking, it's not what folks think it is. It's not stripping funds away from law enforcement. It's reallocating funds to resources that may better serve the community. With regard, we don't have a need to strip away the police. Policing is very vital to the community. Other resources and other avenues to address the needs of the community should be looked at, and that's what the city of Cleveland does. But defunding the police is not what folks think it is.
Yes, I mean, do you agree with the fact that the defunding of the police needs to happen?
I think that I don't think defunding the police needs to happen. I think that we have to look at more of a collaboration between the community and the resources that are available. They have a common interest, like bringing on mental health, social workers, bringing on resources to help address the issues in the city. We have to put resources towards institutions that help combat systemic racism, which is a crime driver. That's what needs to happen. It needs to be a collaboration, not defunding. If anything, we probably need to put more funds toward the police and allocate more funds to our partners as we work to make the community safer.
So, the reason the defunding has come up is because of the recent incidents and a lot of things that are showing up on the internet involving police shootings and things of that nature. So how are police being held accountable for racial profiling?
So we look at statistics, we look at data in the community. We look at the work that the community does, and we look and try to find the problem, right? So to go back to defunding the police, it's the issues that have sparked this conversation. It's better served by analyzing the data and the statistics and listening to the community to find where profiling is happening. Be much more selective of who we hire and put into the uniform, to be much more diligent in the training that we provide to officers so that we can make sure that implicit bias and unconscious bias is addressed, and that we aren't hiring people that come on with prejudices that harm the community.
Definitely. So do you feel social workers and mental health workers should be part of the police force? And if so, what role should they play? Because I know a lot of situations, I'm from Rochester, New York, and there was a situation in Rochester where they were dealing with a mental health, a male adult. And a lot of people felt like, that sort of personnel should have been on site versus the police. But I guess back to the original question, do you feel like social workers and mental health people should be a part of the police force, and if so, what role would they play?
I think, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Cleveland, we're ahead of the curve on there. We do crisis intervention already. We've done it really before it became a thing, and so I'll let Chief talk about how we incorporate mental health with our police services.
Yeah, you're right, Director. And not just our crisis intervention training, but we also have partnered with social workers. We have a co-responder program in effect right now with the division, where a social worker, a clinician is partnered with a police officer, and they go and assist on those mental health, those crisis intervention calls. We've been doing this for probably the last 4 or 5 years. We just received a new grant where Frontline Services is going to help us in hiring those social workers and putting them out there with our guys and girls. But the bottom line is, everybody has to be safe doing their job. And the director touched on this a little bit earlier. There are a lot of things that happen out there in policing that really aren't police matters. So defunding the police, that mantra, we have to redirect certain funding to those agencies that can assist in some of those things, whether it be systemic racism, whether it be mental health problems, crisis intervention, whether it be substance abuse, and make sure those agencies kind of step up to the plate and provide those services so the police don't have to respond to those things.
We're here talking with Police Chief Calvin D. Williams, Detective Felton Collier, and of course, Safety Director Carrie D. Howard. And we have a question coming in from one of our people that chime in. Steve Land OHIO had a question. He says, how do we get officers to understand communities in which they patrol?
Well, I'll start out. Right now, when we hire cadet classes, we actually put them out on what we call a reverse ride-along, where we actually put them out in the community and they visit several places within the community to find out exactly what's out there. We recently just had a class that came off their probationary period. At the end of 6 months, they get out probation, they come back downtown, and then we have a couple of days where we kind of evaluate them and we let them evaluate us. The training they received in the academy, the training they actually got out there on the streets. And one of the things that was brought up by one of the newly minute police officers that were sworn in that day is that they need more time out in the community before they actually get sworn in. So we're looking at expanding that program that we currently have in our police academy.
So I'm going to flip it then. In your expertise and just opinion, how do you feel our communities can better understand law enforcement? That's a question also brought up from our listener.
Felton?
How the communities can better understand law enforcement? Well, I think there's a couple different things you can do. I think just by having conversations with different police officers that patrol the neighborhood, I think that's a good start. And with our CPOP program, which is our Community Policing Orientation Plan, where the police officers actually get out there and they spend a certain amount of time of their shift actually talking with the community and the business owners in the community. I think that's a good way for the citizens to also understand the police, because in those interactions, they can actually ask questions and, better understand what we're doing as law enforcement. So I think that's a good way for them to understand us as well.
Yeah, and if I can chime in, I think, communication is the key to both of those questions. Having police officers who serve from the community, right? People who live in Cleveland serving on the Cleveland Police Department. That's a surefire way to do it. Officers getting out of their zone cars and walking in, talking to business owners and the patrons in some of these businesses, like local corner stores, cell phone stores, talking to people where they are, and for the community to be open to engaging with the police. There's a lot of distrust out there between the community and law enforcement, and that can be resolved by engaging in communication. The citizens and the police want a very safe community. That's the commonality between folks who make it their job to make the community safe and those who live in the community, and that needs to be exploited. That common interest of a safe community.
Thank you.
Bro, you had another question before we go to the next segment?
Oh, well, I guess in essence, can you guys break down why police are in fact essential?
Let me just briefly, I was chief prosecutor for the city of Cleveland. And when I came over to public safety, we got a cell phone, and the cell phone alerts to everything that goes off in the city. People don't understand how busy police, fire, EMS are in this city. Everything from, you have violence to children who walk out of the house at night while the parent is asleep. I mean, these are police officers who are bringing these children back into safe environments, finding their parents. The police are vital to the safety of the community, mainly because that's who people call when they need help. I mean, that's what it is.
And with everything that has been transpiring, I know we've just had a change in power. We've just had an election, but we had, a voice coming from the top that, law and order, and we're going to be, the message that the police are going to come into the neighborhoods and make sure they invoke law and order. And I've grown up in a poor community, and I've unfortunately, had some run-ins with police in the past, and I've seen, friends of mine, family members, or, have their situations with police in the past. And so it just kind of, when you come from a community like that, and it seems to always be like the community versus the police in certain settings, and people get this stigma about the police, it's like, now why should I trust the police?
Well, if I could real quick, there's a time and a place for everything. We teach our officers to be guardians first and then warriors. You need that warrior because there are some bad things that happen out there in our communities. And you need somebody that's going to respond, that can handle that and deal with that and keep people safe. But first and foremost, we teach our officers to be guardians, that we have to go out there and take care of people, good or bad. There are some bad folks out there that, it isn't always a use of force. A lot of times it's de-escalation, talking to those folks and getting them to a place where we can calm that situation down and then deal with it. So, the reason we need police is because, there has to be somebody out there that you can call day, night, weekends, holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving Day. Police officers are out there working. And if there's something going on in the community and you pick up that phone and call them, we're coming, just like fire and EMS. So it's a necessary part of the community. And, it all started back in the 1800s, in England. Sir Robert Peel, said basically, the police are the community and the community are the police. And if we can get back to that, where the police are the community and the community are police officers and confide in us and are from the community, then we'll have a lot better outcomes in a lot of this stuff. Like the director says, people from this city, police in this city, people that understand, even if they're not from the city, people that understand an urban culture, the things that go on in our city day in and day out, that come in and then have that background so they can deal with people on that particular level.
And if I could just follow up on what the chief and the director said, to get there, I believe, there's a level of trust and accountability needed by both sides, by the police and, by the community. And so in order to get there, I think, we're going to need to build some bridges and get some understanding going. I think if we do that, then we get to a place where people actually realize the importance of police and realize why they're essential.
Well, I'll say this. I have a cousin who became a police in Baltimore City. He just got the gig at the age of 40. So, he became a police officer. But a lot of times, in the communities, when the police officers do come in, the police officers that we engage are not from our community. And so I think diversity is a topic that needs to be talked about, diversity and how we can make a difference. So why is it so important to have diversity on the police force?
Right. And we'll get into that. Before we get into our next subject, I want to make sure that all of you viewing, please feel free to be open with comments, questions, because as we've all kind of understood just from the beginning of this, in order for us to, kind of have this understanding, communication is needed on both parts. So if you have a question, don't feel embarrassed or afraid to ask it. Our guests will do their best to make sure that they touch on it as best we can for your understanding. But I definitely want to make sure you know that you can totally leave a comment, and we encourage you to leave a comment and question if you need to. What we're going to get into right now is policing in 2020 and beyond. And of course, a lot of people will tell you that 2020 alone has been a year across, the world, the state, everything, you know what I mean? But for our community. Let's talk about policing in 2020 and beyond.
So my view, if I can just interject, my view, 2020 policing in 2020 and going forward is it's a collaboration between the community and the public. It's understanding what the partnership is. It's understanding that diversity is important, that there's value in diversity, and in order to be successful, you have to have a diverse police force that works in collaboration with the community. The community depends on it, and it depends on the community.
Right.
You know, for me, Ro, it's really like the director says, us taking care of each other. You know, folks out there have to not be afraid to point out when things are wrong, whether it's a police officer that's wrong or a community member that's wrong. You know, a lot of things that go on out there shouldn't happen on both sides of the spectrum. But we get this no snitching mentality. We get this nothing's going to happen mentality, and it keeps really eating at our community and destroying our communities. So if you have somebody out there that you know is doing wrong, destroying the community, you need to let us know.
Mm-hmm.
There's a police officer out there that is not doing what he's supposed to do. You know, he's not doing what we require him to do, and that's professional, respectful service to our community. Then I need to know, and the director needs to know, so that we can do something about that officer and get him out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot that can be done, but we just have to step up and do the work. You know, 2020 has been that year, and a lot of things are on the table now. And right now, you know, I'm not going to get into politics, but we have an opportunity to really, really do some work that's going to matter. And I hope people take this opportunity to get out there and say, look, chief, director, mayor, these are 4 of the things that we want to work on going forward here in the city of Cleveland that we think can really impact not just crime and law and order, but our communities in general and equity and things like that. And let's work on those things. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we hear you, you know, since the end of May, when things really just kind of hit the fan. And for us, even before that, you know, our use of the force have been down for the last 5 or 6 years, but we hear you. So now let's do something about it. Let's put pen to paper, you know, let's get out there and actually do some work and get some things done in this community.
Now, how are police officers being held accountable for excessive force? And then a kind of 2-part question to that. What's that?
They get fired.
Fired? Okay.
That right off the bat.
Right.
Now, I know with social media, we see so much, you know what I mean? Like there's so many videos, unfortunate videos of officers using excessive force. And the question is always, why did it take that? Why couldn't they tase? Why couldn't they, you know, shoot a knee? Why does it have to come to this excessive force? So I know you're saying that they'll be fired, but what do you think that are these officers just not doing police 101 in their mind when they take excessive force? Like, what do you think that is?
Well, if I could, and I know the director has a lot on this point. First of all, you have to kind of define what excessive force is. You know, not all force that people think looks bad can be defined as excessive force. Officers are trained to a certain standard, and that constitutional standard, we have a standard that's over and above the Constitution here in the city of Cleveland, where the force has to be proportional to the force used against the officer. So if I, as a citizen, I'm not trying to kill the officer, then you can't use deadly force against me. If I'm not trying to hurt you in a serious way, then you can't hurt me in a serious way. It has to be proportional. And that's higher than the constitutional standard, which basically says if you fear for your safety, you can use any kind of force you want to use to protect yourself. So our officers are held accountable because if they use force over and above what our standard is that we set, then we terminate those officers. If an officer, to get back to your original point, how do we get to this point in time? A lot of it has to do with training. A lot of it has to do with how officers perceive the situation itself. And let's be honest, a lot of it has to do with that person that they're dealing with that just doesn't at that particular moment comply, and then things really escalate out of hand. I'm not saying that, people are guilty of causing their own, whether it's death or serious injury, but I'm saying it starts somewhere in there with some kind of compliance, whether that person feels they should comply or not. and then things escalate out of hand, be it by that officer's hand or even by that person's hand. So we have to look at, it's a lot of layers to this that we have to look at and make sure that we make sure when our officers act that they're in compliance with our policies and that they go above and beyond that policy to make sure that people stay safe. And I'll let the director kind of chime in here.
Yeah, and you know, I echo everything the chief just said, and I'll add that, you know, incidents of force are investigated. It's investigated if it's a citizen who brings a complaint to the Office of Professional Standards, or if use of force is brought to our attention through internal affairs. It's investigated, and if it's found to be excessive, then, you know, charges may be filed criminally or an administrative process, or both may happen. And out of the administrative process, if the use of force was excessive and unwarranted, that police officer will be disciplined to the point of termination. It really goes back to what the chief said. It's training. It's having the culture of accountability and executing that accountability.
We definitely have some comments coming in from our guest, people chiming in. We have Carol Gaskin saying, why are so many people assuming that as evil as people are getting from violence on TV, that people will help you politically or out of human nature? Everything takes the power of prayer. She thinks everything takes the power of prayer, but she's saying that, I guess she's just assuming that America is an evil country and there's just evil people on the police force. Do you believe that there are just all around bad people on the police force that are going to do bad things regardless?
And to kind of piggyback that, and I'm sorry, but just because it made me think of something, in the world of social media, I pay attention to a lot of comments, and people feel, not saying that this is Carolyn or anyone, but I'm just saying that I've seen comments where people are like, oh, well, they need to do better background checks because, yeah, they have people that shouldn't be police officers policing community. So,
well, we do stringent background checks. You know, people just like I'm a veteran too. We have Veterans Day coming up. Is that we have to remember that people are drawn out of the community to become police officers, just like they're drawn out of the community to join the military. And out of that community, you get a diverse group of people. It's difficult to catch everyone who shouldn't be here. It's our responsibility to do our best to in that regard. It's also our responsibility to continuously evaluate people to make sure that they should still wear the uniform. I'm one who believes people are inherently good. I believe people inherently want to live in a safe environment. They want to take care of themselves and take care of each other. And those folks tend to put on the uniform and become police officers. And the majority of our police officers do a damn good job at what they do. And they respect the badge and the uniform. But it takes people. It takes prayer and people.
definitely.
Definitely.
Oh, someone else wanted to say something?
I was going to say, just in terms of the background checks, we have done a lot of things to help modify that and try to catch as many people as we can that don't belong here. We updated our entry-level tests. We've changed our psychological tests as well. So there are things that are being done to try to make sure that we get the right people on this division.
Definitely. So since we're talking about policing in 2020 and beyond, we have another question from one of our guests. Do you guys see stiffer penalties for violent crimes in the future? From Elaine, thank you.
That's a legislative question. The penalties are often found in statute and then executed by the judge in the courts. It's not the role of police to interject onto what those penalties should be. That's for the court of law. Everyone's innocent until proven guilty. So I think that's a more appropriate question for the judiciary and the legislature.
Yeah, Director, and I think it's also a key question for the community. Our community elects those legislators and judges to go down and act on their behalf. So if the community feels that, things are out of hand, that violence is just to the point where there should be stiffer penalties, then the community needs to step forward and say that. If they don't feel that way, then they need to say that also, because those folks downstate are elected by us, meaning the community here in Ohio, to actually enact those laws and those penalties.
And I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit. We wanted to talk diversity. You want to get there? Yeah, sorry about that, Ro. I was ahead. I got to fix these glasses. But we will get into that topic right now with diversity. Why is it so important to have diversity in the police force?
I'll start first. So first, we serve a diverse community here in Cleveland. You know, Cleveland's over 50% minorities, and what we know is that people from different cultures and backgrounds have a different demeanor and ways of carrying themselves. So diversity also allows you to prepare for cultural differences that we may come across as police officers. So just having a diverse police force actually allows you to deal with all these different things.
I had a comment from one of our people here commenting that said it has nothing to do with diversity. Do you agree with that?
I
disagree. I think it has everything to do with diversity. Yeah. I mean, if you look at our country right now, it seems like our country is kind of split down the middle. You know, people that believe this and people that believe that. And you know, if you never get a mix of people in both of those crowds, then you're never going to do anything, because half the people are going to want one and half the people are going to want two. So you're never going to decide anything. You're never going to get anything done. So to Detective Collier's point, you know, I want a diverse police division here in the city of Cleveland, because I've worked with all kinds of officers, male, female, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Arab, you name it. I've worked with them all. And every officer that's different than me brings a different perspective on a call for service. And you need that perspective out there. You know, it's not like all black officers have to police black communities, or white officers should only police white communities. When you get that diversity, you get better understanding. And maybe I learned something from that Hispanic guy by going on a call on West 25th Street, something I don't know, and vice versa. He learned something by going on a call on 79th and Hoff. So, you know, you got to have that diversity, because you're not always going to have a police agency that totally 100% reflects the community. So if you get people of a different culture, different background, a different race, ethnicity, then they have to know how to deal with different cultures within that city.
That one of the earlier questions was, how do we get officers to understand the community they patrol? And that's by exposing these officers to that diversity, interacting with diverse citizens and serving with diverse officers. That's part of how we get them to understand the community they patrol.
Now, what about police officers being held accountable for racial profiling? Maybe they don't understand the communities that they're in.
Well, I think it's our job to teach them, to train them, to understand, again, not just the African-American culture. We have a huge West African culture here in the city of Cleveland. We have a huge Asian population here, Arab population. You know, it's up to us as the leadership within the Division of Police to teach our officers how to deal with those communities, and then to hold them accountable for dealing with those communities correctly. And if they don't, then, you know, they come see me or they come see the safety director, and there's accountability at those levels. And if we really see that you just don't get it, you're not the type of officers that we want here in Cleveland, and then we do our best to get rid of you, period.
Can I just rewind it back to our policing in 2020 and beyond? A lot of times it's a simple question for the community, and that is, why should I, a person in my community, trust the police?
Well, I'll start off, Director. For one, if you're calling the police, you need something, and you should be able to count on that person that you call for help to take care of your needs. Everybody needs something sometimes, everybody, no matter who they are, no matter what community they live in. So there has to be an apparatus within that community that people can depend on. And we here in Cleveland are trying to make that our Department of Public Safety. If you need help because you're sick, you call EMS or fire. If you need help because, you know, your house is on fire or you're in a car accident, you call EMS and fire. You know, if somebody's kicking in your door, you call the Cleveland Division of Police, and we're going to come. And, you know, we've been working hard over the last 6.5 years to make sure that people understand that we're here to help you. And again, if people don't feel they're getting the service that they deserve, they need to let us know so that we can correct that, so we can find out what's on that officer's mind that did not serve you in the way that you felt you should have been, that did not treat you professionally or respectfully, so we can take care of that. We either retrain that officer, we hold that officer accountable through discipline, or we get rid of that officer, plain and simple. But again, I think the director mentioned it earlier, it's a two-way street. Our community has to step forward and say, all right, this is what we need. This is what we want from our police force out there. And this is what we're going to do as a community to help you get there. You know, if a person is destroying our community, we're going to let you know who that person is because we want to get them out of here. If a police officer is mistreating people in our community, we're going to let you know, Chief, because we want that person out of here.
And the citizens have to trust that process. They have to trust the process that, Detective Collier touched on it. We're making changes in the way that we hire. So trust the process in that we're using to hire these officers, and trust the changes that we're going to make. And also trust that the officers who get up in the day, start their day, put that uniform on, put that badge on, they're coming out there to help. The majority of these officers, when they signed on to become police officers, they did it for noble purposes. And we've got to tap back into those noble purposes, as well as hire new worthy officers and the community. Trust the process, trust the officers, because we'll show up. They're going to show up.
All right. And like I said, I have a cousin who's a police officer. Why is becoming a police officer a great career?
Go ahead, Detective.
So to me, I would say that being a police officer, first, is not routine. No 2 days as a patrol officer are alike. Every day you come in, it brings something new to the job. The next thing I would say is the compensation and benefits package. Being a patrol officer, you have the opportunity to be able to raise a family. You can buy a home. You can go on vacation. You can send your kids to college. So there's a lot of benefits that come with it. And to me, it's just given the opportunity to serve the community, especially if you grew up here and you're from this area. It gives you an opportunity to help the people that you care about.
Can I just add this real quick? I have a 3-year-old. My son dressed up as a police officer for Halloween, right? My son legit believes police officers are superheroes, right? I mean, so to be able to, adults, we grow up and our opinions change. They get jaded as we get, we step into reality. But these kids, they look up to these folks who put this uniform on. So much so that, a lot of kids grow up, they say they want to be a police officer. That's a heck of a reputation to live up to. So everything that Detective Collier said about the benefits and the job, but you talk to any police officer who sits down with, gives a ice cream to a kid, or is talking at the community center, or takes a minute to interact with kids who see them as superheroes, I think that's valuable too.
Hey, if I could real quick, a lot of years ago, when I first got on this job, first of all, I never, ever thought about being a police officer before I took the test. Never. A friend of mine talked me into it as kind of like a dare. We were both in college together. We both took the test. I said, okay, I'll try it out. We both got hired at the same time. I said, okay, I'll go to the academy. If I don't like it, I can leave and go back to school. And got there, saw what it's all about. And again, almost 35 years later, I'm still here and I love it. And I love it not just because of the benefits and things like that. I put my kids through college, built homes, I have a secure pension, things like that. But I love it because I get to go out there and help people. And our officers get to go out there and try day in and day out to make our community better. And that's what the vast majority of policemen here in the city of Cleveland, they want to go out there and they want to make a difference. They want to help a person, whether it's changing a flat tire for a resident, whether it's giving somebody from out of town that's lost directions, or whether that's catching that guy that just shot a kid down the street and putting them off the streets. And those are the things that police officers do day in and day out, not to mention the ice cream socials, the pizza parties, the skating rink parties that we put on. I can go on and on and on. but this is a great career. And again, 35 years ago, I never would have dreamed it. Never would have thought about it. Nobody talked to me about it except my buddy that saw an advertisement that says, come join the Cleveland Division of Police, take this test. And that's why I'm sitting here today as chief of police.
Thank you. So before we get into our next question, we have another comment. Why is it when you call the police, it's as if you are not the victim and you're being questioned as if you did something? This makes a citizen not want to trust the police. Thank you, Vet.
Director, I think this is what we were talking about with our call center the other day.
Yeah.
Director can tell you the details behind it, but a lot of times when you call, there's a lot of information that we need to get. And while we're getting that information, we're already sending a police car to you. And a lot of people say, well, why are you asking me all these questions? I just need the police right now. Well, that car is on its way, but the officers need as much information as they can get before they get to your door and get out of the car so they can give you proper service. Director?
Yeah, they need to know, how many people are there, what's the situation, is there a firearm, who is the instigator? I mean, as much information is it's necessary. It's important for officers to have this information as they arrive on scene, and then when they arrive on scene, they may ask additional clarifying questions. So it's not that anyone is you're not being believed, or you're being treated as if you did something wrong. It's people, generally people don't like to be asked questions. Generally, folks, when they call 911, they call the police. They want them there quick, fast, and in a hurry without any questions asked. But we have to make sure that our officers know what they're arriving to so that they can conduct themselves accordingly. A mental health professional might be necessary to add to the equation. So these are the types of questions that need to be asked. And we ask citizens to be very patient when you call in. And like the chief said, when you call, an officer is already being dispatched to you. An officer is on the way. So the questions that are being asked is to filter as much additional information to the officer as they're en route to you, so that they can handle the situation appropriately.
Thank you. So let's talk about how police officers, it's no secret that, have been getting a bad rep all over. And I see a lot of people basically say, well, you know what, maybe if we feel like there's this plethora of bad officers policing our communities, then let's get some good police officers in there. Let's get a you and a me in there. Let's change the dynamic of policing in our communities. So I want any of you to give us 3 often overlooked qualities that make a good police officer. For someone who might be watching and saying to themselves, you know what, I'm inspired. And maybe that could be me. That could be, Chief Kelvin Williams, where I didn't have this desire to protect and serve my community, but now I'm inspired. So what 3 often qualities are overlooked for a good police officer?
I'll start off. 1 is honesty. Number 2 is being respectful. And number 3 is being humble. You can't, a lot of times policemen get in trouble because we want to be the police in the situation. And you can't always be the police. Sometimes you have to just listen to folks. You have to be honest with folks about the situation that's going on and things that are going to happen. And you have to be humble about it. When we get into egos and, I'm the police, I got the gun, the badge, you do what I say, and that kind of stuff, that's when it leads to trouble.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, that sometimes they do come, you do have officers, not all of them, but officers that do come in with that cocky attitude. Like it's, unfortunately it is true that it does happen that some officers do show up, you know what I mean, just ready to do battle with, it's seeming like they're just ready to just be in a confrontation sometimes. So hopefully the training that you guys are putting in place will eliminate guys like that. Now, Chief, you touched on how you became a police officer. I'd like to hear Detective Collier's story. How did you become a police officer?
So I became a police officer. I'm actually a 13-year Marine Corps vet. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I actually went to, my MOS was transportation and shipping. So I got a job in transportation here in Cleveland when I got back. I did that for a while, and that was it became, I don't know, very mundane. I was doing the same thing every day. I could basically go to work and shut my brain off and do a job. And so I basically got tired of doing that, and I started asking some of the guys I had served with. A lot of them had became, police officers around this country and around the state, and they told me that I should, look into becoming a police officer. And at the time, I really didn't know if that was something I wanted to do, but I went ahead and I tried it out, and I ended up here in Cleveland, and I'm actually glad it's the best decision I made.
Sounds
Thank
like
you.
guys are enjoying this
Right.
career.
So we have another question. Why are people so afraid to ask for help in certain neighborhoods? And do you guys see that? Do you see that trend a little bit?
Well, I think we see it along the lines of people don't want to give us the information to help them in that neighborhood. And I understand it. People are afraid of retaliation. People are afraid that, something's going to get back, that they're the ones that told, who the bad guy was. We get it. But again, when I grew up, we didn't call it, snitching. We call it, hey, I'm going to tell because I want to protect my neighborhood. If something happens here, I'm telling somebody. Because that's not the way we operate. But it seems like, over the last 15 years or so, we get more and more out of line with that, and, trying to protect your community because that's where you live. It seems like people, again, I understand people are scared, but it seems like, a lot of folks don't want to get involved. They just want to kind of live their lives. If it doesn't affect them, they're not going to tell you about it. But we need all our folks to kind of step up and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what we think needs to happen to correct that. And it's not always the police coming in and arresting everybody. There are other things that can happen.
Yeah, it takes courage to take ownership of your block and to call the police when you see something happening on your block that shouldn't be. And that's where that partnership comes in between the community and the police department, right? You have to trust that the information you give us is going to be acted upon, and that we're going to do our best to keep you safe. And that's the real solution to crime, is a block by block, holding a responsibility that by the people, by the citizens, and in partnering with the police. We got to get this. Stop.
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen sooner or later. Thank you, Chandra,
Go ahead and
for your
ask the next
comment.
question.
We're glad that we're having this conversation as well, because it's definitely a conversation that needs to be had. So hold on, mommy needs that baby. Next question is, when a police officer witnesses so much violence, how does an officer prevent becoming desensitized?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have what's called an employee assistance unit for our police officers, and they do a great job with helping our officers cope. They do a great job in a lot of preventive things we do now. We do yoga, we do meditation, we do mindfulness now.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for the last 2.5 years because there are a lot of bad things that our officers see day in and day out. We give folks days off when they've seen a traumatic event. We give them time to de-stress and cope with that. We have a stress consultant, psychologist on our staff that you can walk in our office anytime and just sit down and talk to her. We also have a program called Ease at Work with the city of Cleveland that we can refer folks out to different people that can help them, whether it's like psychiatrists, psychologists, whether it's just a counselor, somebody that they just need to talk to. But a lot of the things that we're doing now are being looked at all around the country. Our employee assistance unit supervisor spoke at the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference, and that's chiefs from all over the world, about our mindfulness program, our yoga program, our meditation program. And a lot of agencies and police departments out there are now looking at, how do we put a yoga room in our police headquarters so folks can come and do yoga or come and meditate, or a quiet room so officers can de-stress. But things like that, we're doing here in the city, and we're trying to partner with some of our other healthcare workers out there to do even more for our officers.
You guys made it sound absolutely marvelous and wonderful to join the police force, and for your reasons. And like you said, when back in your time, when you come from us, you see something wrong, you're going to tell. But we have to be honest in knowing that the culture of, at least from the African American community, that has been affected by systemic racism and what has happened to the communities and the choices people make to, maybe, break the law. But in our culture, sometimes that's made to seem like that's the cool thing to be, or that's the lifestyle that's cool. And the police lifestyle is not a cool thing to do. So with the history of police brutality in the African American communities, why should a person of color become a police officer?
Because if you want to help your community, it's the right thing to do. And we're not saying that the only way to help your community is to be a police officer or firefighter, EMT, but we're saying it's one of the most impactful ways where, 6 months after you get in the academy and graduate, you're out there actually doing stuff for the people. When I first graduated the academy, I got assigned to the neighborhood that I grew up in, Glenville. Right out of the academy, St. Clair, Superior, 105. I was right there in the neighborhood that I went to school in and grew up in, and knew everybody in that neighborhood. And I was getting paid to do it. So what better chance do you have to affect the people that you love, the people that you grew up with, the neighborhoods that you want to see come back, than to be a police officer? I mean, it's almost immediate impact if you do the job right.
It's if we have a system that people have a problem with, flood the system, become part of the system, apply to be as part of the solution. And again, the answer to that is bringing in that diversity into the law enforcement field, so that you can firsthand give your input about what's acceptable and unacceptable in your community. If there is a problem, you are the solution. And this is a prime example of where it is. And like the chief said, being a police officer is not the only way to help your community. There are other ways to help your community, but you are, while folks are not wanting to become police officers, is delaying the solution of what policing means in our community.
I'll just add, we have to reach a balance. The more the right people we get in this profession, I believe the less of the bad behaviors we will see going on. And again, Cleveland's over 50% minority, so we should want, as a citizen, as a city, and as a department, for the police department to resemble the community.
I would have to agree.
If I could real quick expound on that, your original question was, being a policeman is not cool. Doing all these other things is cool. And I have to kind of push back that being a policeman is cool. We get to drive a company car, as we used to say. You get paid to go out there and drive around in that company car all day long. When I first became a police officer, again, it was a long time ago, and the people in the community respected that. To see this kid that grew up, from elementary to junior high to high school, to actually come back in that community and do something positive. Again, it's not the only way to help your community, but it's one of the most impactful ways right away to help your community.
Right.
And just so we're clear for those viewing, and if not you, then maybe someone you guys are accepting applications until Friday, correct?
We are.
Detective Holly, give you the information on how you can apply.
Yes, applications are currently open until Friday, until midnight, actually. So you have Friday until midnight to get your application in. And to get their application in, all they have to do is visit clevelandohio.gov/careers. Or if they have any questions, they can call us in the recruiter's office at 216-623-5233.
Yeah,
come on out there and apply. Come on out and apply.
Yeah, I guess if people from our community, if you're unhappy with police on the force, you can become a police officer and help make the change yourself. I guess that would be one way to look at it. If you don't like what's going on, get in the system yourself and help to provoke the change from within. I think that would be a reason to become a police officer, so that you can go inside there and, because we hear the stories about, well, why did this police officer stand pat while this bad police officer was doing these unacceptable things, and they didn't say anything. So maybe we can get people that want to make sure that they hold people that are on the force accountable. If you feel like you're that type of person and you will hold a bad officer accountable, become an officer so that you can help infiltrate the system and get the weed out the bad seeds. I would say that would be a reason to join the police force.
And the director said it, I don't know if everybody heard that, but basically be the change you want to see. A lot of times that starts with us taking these kind of actions. Of course, we vote and, you know, we deal with our communities as a whole. But if you want to create a certain type of change and you feel like you have the qualities that make a great officer, I think this is a great opportunity to take advantage of that. We have 3 gentlemen right here that can speak to the success of being police officers and what that does for our communities and what that does, you know, just for a person's career. So definitely take advantage. We have the website scrolling. The phone number is 216-623-5233. Again, pass that information on because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who would take advantage of, one, the opportunity to be in this career, but also just to, if there's any other questions you have or any insight you might need, a great opportunity to take advantage of clevelandohio.gov/careers or calling 216-623-5233.
Call that number. And for those that think there aren't cool police, here are 3 examples.
I know a lot of cool police.
You have 3 right here who are at the top that can help create the change that you want. So holla at either one of them. And I'm sure like they got me even thinking maybe I should become a deputy.
I don't know if we need hazmat. I don't know if we need police officer hazmat. Yeah, I don't know if they're ready yet.
Hazmat suit on and come on out.
Come on. Hey, Ro, you made a good point. I just want to touch on it real quick, and not to bring politics in it, but you said, hey, if we all come out and do what we're supposed to do, change happens. Mm-hmm. Look what we did last week. Mm-hmm. If our folks hadn't came out last week and did what we did, we'd be in some trouble, right? Mm-hmm. So if we want to change something, if we put our minds to it and come out and do it, we make real change.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Definitely. We know who you voted for. Anyway.
hey, I didn't say
that. You're right. So,
unity over divisiveness any day. Unity over divisiveness.
Definitely.
You know, and Detective Collier, these guys are icons to the community. I mean, what they do every day. You know, I'm not a police officer. Those guys are police officers. They put their uniform on. You know, they work really hard. They could use more folks from the community joining their team, our team.
Well, we really appreciate you, gentlemen, taking the time out to even have this conversation. It was an important conversation. It needs to be had. As many people that, you know, we should do this again sometime soon as we see how it starts to shape up for 2021 and beyond. I think we should continue to come back and continue to have this, like you said, communication is key. And it needs to be communication on both sides. So you guys, we appreciate you having an open door policy to be able to come and talk to you. And I would advise anyone that has any questions about how to make change in the police force to come talk to either one of these gentlemen and change your perspective.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Then also before we go, everybody viewing, just a reminder to share when you sign out. If you thought this was great information, whether it be for the career part or just the information that our guest shared with you, please make sure you share this. And let's, you know, each one teach one.
Right.
Nice.
Take care, y'all.
Have a blessed one.
You too. Thank you.
See you around the land.